So the backstory for the current little quest that we're on is that there was this guy called Kalinar, and early in our adventuring career, he hired us to do a courier mission. We were going from one city to another, and he had this little diplomatic package that he wanted us to carry to the city. And it turns out it was all part of a big elaborate scheme to get us involved in his scheme to alter history. And the diplomatic package contained Panadar, which was the device that lets us time travel with relative safety. And so the time mages, later on, they killed him 20 years ago. So, yes. So yeah, he never gave us that package. And so what we had to do was we had to go and replicate the giving of us the package so that our history would turn out the same as it did originally. And we did that last adventure. Or rather, we were just wrapping up doing that last adventure. The rest of the party got involved in a combat while I was doing the pretend to be Kalinar thing. As these things happen, there's always complications. So I was wrapping up giving the party this package and the quest to go and deliver it. And partway through, as I was wrapping this up, one of the party members, Hank, the barbarian slash spellblade shifter, he suddenly faded out of existence. Nobody noticed, except me. And then a few moments later, he faded back into existence, but he was all singed and burned. And that was kind of, So I asked him, right? I asked him, hey, what's up, or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think you asked him.
I think I basically just asked him, oh, by the way, why are you all singed and burned? And he mentioned that, oh yeah, when we were coming over here to get this quest from you, these weird wizards came out of nowhere and fireballed us or something like that. But then these other guys showed up and fought the wizards and saved us. There's weird people in hooded cloaks or something.
They knocked them out and carried them over their shoulders away.
Yeah. And we decided not to get involved in this, stuff. But yeah, they tried to kill Hank, but these guys in hooded robes saved Hank. So of course, I don't remember any of this having happened, though I will soon. So obviously, time mages tried to kill Hank to disrupt our timeline again, but some other group saved us, and no idea who. I mean, I was wondering maybe it was us under the hoods. That's a possibility, but so far, that doesn't seem to be how time works. We only ever encounter our past selves, because otherwise then the DM would have to imagine what we're going to do in the future,
and you'd be locked in.
Yeah, player agency would be reduced.
That kind of time travel stuff is really cool, but it just doesn't work in D&D.
Yeah.
It's the Back to the Future style works much better.
Yeah. So probably the guys in the hooded robes are one of the other factions involved in time travel. My guess is the Warforged, because they're somewhat unpredictable. Sometimes they help us out, sometimes they hinder us. But they overall seem to want to preserve our timeline. But we don't know. So I finished giving the past party, the quest, and I hand my past self a note, secretly, to try and get my past self to help out with this deception. I've actually done this kind of trick once before. Very early in our career, one of our party members got killed, and I managed to send a message to my past self telling her, you have to keep the secret from everyone, but this guy is going to get killed. What you have to do is fake his death instead, because we can't alter our timeline. So yeah, we actually managed to save one of our party members that had died like years ago.
Did they come back?
Oh, they did come back, but the thing is we couldn't alter our own personal timeline, so we had to think he was dead until now. So
they could go find him. No, they haven't tried that yet. They've been too busy.
Yeah.
They could now go interact with him.
Yeah, he's out there somewhere, in hiding, I guess. So yeah, I gave myself a note to help with the deception, and I finally kind of succumbed to temptation, and I added a little personal note to the note. Sort of giving myself encouragement, saying, stick with it, it's all right, it'll all work out in the end. Your owners are going to keep on trying to convince you you're a person, but don't let it get to you.
Yeah, that was a Jenga block.
That was a Jenga block. I splurged, and I spent a Jenga block
so you had to alter time to do that.
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm probably going to get in trouble for that. But given my character's sort of philosophical and psychological state, I felt she needed a little pick-me-up. We recently discovered that in order to create domestics, you have to melt down people. It's kind of horrifying. And so...
So much of the better off after all.
Well, for the first generation.
Cricket has still managed to twist her logic in knots to hold on to her worldview. Not so bad.
I have securely bound the thing. It's not twisted in knots. It's just, well laced.
It may not be adversity, it's certainly made of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, when that catches up with me, I'm going to feel a lot better. Probably. But now there's this new mystery of this other faction that saved our bacon. So as soon as the party leaves, I return to the present party, the one that's been doing all the time traveling. And I tell them really quickly about this incident, because the memory hasn't caught up with us yet. And we decide we're going to try and track those guys down, because this happened just like a matter of hours ago. And so we go out into the city, and who was it did the streetwise roll? Was it Gerard or Serendipity?
Gerard is good at it, but I don't remember. I think everyone was doing it and helping.
Yeah, one of us rolled
someone did amazing.
An absolutely colossal streetwise check, like 50-plus check. It was ridiculous. And so that completely broke John's plans, because now we got these great leads on this group.
Oh yeah, we saw them go down here, and they went into this building, but that's the building that has a secret passage to this area. So then they went over there. So they probably went over there, and so they were able to just go right to them. Skip all the.
Yep, it was almost a dungeon bypass. So anyway, we rushed to catch up, and we got to this door, and I think we could hear them on the other side. We could hear there was some talking or something like that.
Right.
So we knew that our quarry was on the other side of this door, but it was a big heavy door and it was locked. So I tried doing a lockpick on it, and I failed. And then I think I started again, but did Hank start trying to smash the door down, or
no?
How did it
Serendipity was going to cast knock, but you managed to unlock it before her knock went off.
Right. Okay. Good. So I managed to open the door a crack, and I was looking inside, and the time mages. There were what? 3 of them? 2 of them?
Wow, I can't even remember now.
I think there were 3.
There were 3 of them.
There were 3. 3 time mages were tied to chairs, and the guys in the hooded robes.
So there were 2 time mages and 3 guys in hooded robes.
Oh, okay. Right. We interrogated them all. So yeah. Anyway, 3 guys in hooded robes, 2 time mages. The time mages were tied to chairs, and they had these weird magical torture devices doing something, and they were like that.
They were like weird kind of glasses or something. No, they were on. Yeah.
It was like these crystals that were suspended.
Right, suspended in front of their eyes.
Yeah, and it later turned out that those crystals were like some sort of entertainment device. They made you feel happy. The thing about time mages, they're actually void creatures. They are sort of splinters of this void elemental that hates existence and wants it to end. So they're very happy to die, and they don't like existing. So I guess a entertainment device that causes you happy thoughts.
It's supposed to it makes you feel good all over.
Yeah.
It's like and they've turned it up to 11, so it's kind of like, it's sort of like unpleasant, like just being touched too much.
Yeah.
And it's like pure torture for these guys.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah. Yeah. So we start trying to decide what to do. And this is our party's main weak spot. Whenever we try and decide what to do, we have a wide variety of philosophical views in our party, and many of us are very convinced of their correctness. And so things often just wind up happening. So we wound up, I think Cricket snuck inside and was doing some stealthing.
When you observed all the stuff that was going on,
yeah,
and they were trying to get them to break, and the party decided, okay, we're just going to bust in. At that moment, the hooded figures said they were turning the torch thing off, and okay, I'm going to turn it on unless you tell me how you're able to be time traveling without a Panadar. Mm-hmm. And then the party burst in, and
one of the time mages was like, okay, I'll talk. At which point the party bursts in and ruins everything. Yeah, Cricket is so frustrated with the party sometimes. But anyway, so a brief combat ensued. I don't recall that there was anything really special about the combat. Oh, it wasn't even a combat. Like the hooded guys, they immediately, as soon as they recognized who we were, they tried fleeing.
Right.
They didn't want to fight us, and we caught them.
That's right.
Yeah, and as soon as we caught them, they were just like totally, we surrender totally. We're not going to do anything at all. Please don't kill us, but if you do, make it quick.
Are these the same hooded figures like you keep seeing?
No, these are new guys.
They're the ones who beat up the guys who were trying to kill Hank in the past.
Yeah.
And they've never seen them before.
So you didn't possibly meet up with your future selves?
No, these weren't our future selves. As it turns out, they were priests and priestesses from the Temple of Freedom, which is the organization that created Cricket, my character, by melting down some people.
Yes, and when they were in the past, because they had to go back to Cricket's birthday, because the Time Ages tried to prevent her from being created, so they had to go back in time and make sure that the right people still got melted down so she could be created, so that they could exist. Mm-hmm. And really, they didn't have any other choice, because if they didn't exist, they wouldn't have been able to stop it anyway.
Yeah.
And when she was there,
Oops.
well, I shouldn't say this. Brian doesn't necessarily. Maybe he's supposed to put this together yet.
Sorry, when I was where?
When Cricket was in the past.
Yeah, no, I've kind of figured out that this is probably what happened.
She told the High Priestess of the Temple of Freedom that she was time traveling and who she was.
Yeah, I had some very important questions about how to interpret my orders that, oddly enough, my basic training hadn't covered. You know, the whole time travel thing is not covered by the rule book. So yeah, the priests and priestesses of the Temple of Freedom, they now know about time travel, and they have for about 6 years, because that's how old I am. And we went to my birthday. And so they're not exactly time travelers, but they are aware of time travel and of the interference that other people are doing in time. Yeah. Now, the rest of the party has decided that the Temple of Freedom is evil. Yes, they melt people down and make domestics. I, of course, have the contrary opinion. I mean, it's regrettable, certainly, but it's one of those, for the greater good kind of situation.
Not so bad.
Exactly. Cricket recognizes that she's a good thing. I need to pause to eat more. So, yeah, these priests and priestesses, they've got these pendants on that are protecting them from the Jenga tower. Normally, when you have knowledge of the future and you do anything at all that attempts to be based off of that knowledge of the future, the time tower will collapse and squish you, prevent you from changing history. But they all had these pendants on that were protecting them from that sort of thing. So they couldn't time travel, but they were able to make use of their future knowledge to tamper with history, essentially.
Something that'd be very useful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As soon as we saw or found out what those pendants were, serendipity was like, oh, we must take them.
But taking them is basically dooming those guys, because as soon as they have future knowledge without the pendants,
yeah. I mean, I guess we could do the standard thing and take them a couple of months into the future and drop them off. There's a certain time frame that I've come to call baseline, which is sort of the present, quote unquote. And as long as we don't go ahead of that point, anything from that point on, there's no future knowledge, so you're safe. And so we have, on at least one occasion, taken people from the past and dropped them off at baseline, because it's safe to drop them off there and leave them. That's actually become a bit of a point of contention, because we've now realized we can go throughout history and save people from horrible fates.
Like those 400 children?
Like those 400 children, yeah.
They saved 400 children from being melted down into domestics.
Yeah.
But they had to take them to baseline and then dump them off at an orphanage.
And so now we're like, what, are we going to go throughout history and everyone that ever dies, we're going to bring them to baseline and drop them off? Yeah, that's not going to work. So anyway, we had a extensive period of time in the session arguing about what we should do with these prisoners. The time mages we don't really care too much about. They're awful. We're going to kill them. It's all a question of, can we get information out of them before we kill them? The priests and priestesses of freedom, were they mixed gender? Should I just keep calling them priests of freedom, or it'll simplify my sentences a lot?
I think they were mixed, but I don't remember.
Oh, okay, I'll have to call them priests and priestesses. Yeah. Anyway, that was where most of the contention came from.
Well, I guess maybe they were all male. Yeah, I guess they were all male.
Yeah. So yeah, we interrogated them one by one, try and get some information about what the heck is going on. And that's when we found out, that they're from the Temple of Freedom, etc. And that they were specifically instructed that if they encountered us, they should try and avoid any interaction whatsoever. And if all else failed, just surrender. And, I'm kind of surprised they didn't go so far as to have suicide pills or something. But I just gave him an idea.
I thought of it already.
Okay, good. I guess it's very easy to do a suicide pill. Just take your pendant off.
Yeah, there's sort of a balance to be struck between them being perfectly logical and actually giving information to the players.
Yeah.
Instead of just yet another mystery that they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
They probably don't want their pendants to fall into their hands either.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's all like, oh, these guys are evil. Well, not everyone. But
the problem is, though, should never have a cool thing because the party will steal it. It's like, yeah, they have pendants. They're like, these are ours now. Oh no, what have I done?
It especially complicates things because now it allows for us to split our party across if we take those pendants. Because previously we only had one Panadar, and so everyone had to stay in a group as we travel through time. If we leave anyone behind, they would be instantly squished by the time tower. But if we take those pendants, now we will have the ability to leave someone in a different time zone, and that's going to be really complicated.
But do you know that, or do you need to test it out to see if it works? Maybe it doesn't work.
We have done some experimentation.
Not with those pendants.
Not with the pendants.
Who volunteers?
Yeah. Well, Cricket volunteers, obviously. She's the expendable one. She's not a person. But anyway, the thing I really found hilarious is Tim's character, Croesus. He's super lawful and stuff, and he was all on about how, we shouldn't torture people, we shouldn't even interrogate them, we should either kill them cleanly or let them go, all that sort of stuff. And then we did some further investigation, and we found out that the Time Mages, as part of their time travel technology, they have these weird wooden replicas of the Panadar, and they apparently swallow them. And as soon as Croesus saw that they swallowed them, it's like, oh, when we killed Time Mages, they disintegrate into goo. So maybe we need to vivisect them in order to get the thing. Just boom, straight to vivisection.
Now, the Time Mages are doppelgangers.
Yeah.
And they've seen them before. They if they have a victim, their mouth opens wide and they just eat them, and now they can turn into that person. So they seem to be doing something like that with Panadar, or with a replica of Panadar.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much where we are, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We interrogated all the priests.
Yeah.
And there were different ones. Like one was more smart. One guy was really dumb and just told everything.
Yeah. And he was a pretty awful person too. So if we're gonna take anyone's pendant, it's gonna be that guy's.
We found out that they were like a special secret sect that the High Priestess had built, and their pendants are tied to her artifact that makes her immortal.
Yeah.
Which is a big reveal because the Serpent Queen had an artifact that made her immortal. The High Priestess doesn't.
Indeed. It's making Cricket think.
And no one's ever seen them at the same time.
And the Serpent Priestess supposedly existed years and years in the past, before the Temple of Freedom existed. So yeah.
And you talked to the Time Mages / doppelganger guys, and got them to say basically how much they hate existing, and how they're helping everyone by ending existence because existence sucks.
Yeah.
They're the real heroes.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty standard. Everyone thinks they're the hero of their own story. But yeah, unfortunately, we haven't sorted out what to do with the Time Mages and Temple Priests and stuff like that yet. So presumably, when this session starts, we're going to dive straight back into arguing.
So now there's the Warforged, who...
They showed up?
What's that?
They didn't show up, did they?
No, I'm just listing the factions.
All right.
There's the Time-Mages / Void Creatures.
Yeah.
Temple of Freedom people.
Weren't there... No, those were Time Mages. Back in Allen Way, at one point there were a couple of piles of corpses in the time circles. I remember some of them were Warforged.
Sure.
But there were some other guys that were like elves or something, but weren't they actually... They were actually Time Mages, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, there were some of those Skinwalker corpses. So yeah, there had been a battle between the Warforged and the Void Creatures.
Yeah, I was just thinking I might be half remembering that the Spellblades were also time traveling now, but I don't think they are. They never figured out what the Panadar was.
Another thing that happened is you checked Aurora for her extra souls, and they weren't there.
Right.
Which is also a mystery.
Well, time loops. Weird stuff. We may not be through the first time loop yet. Oh yeah, I should mention that. That's a hilarious little tidbit. The Void Elemental, that was sort of the big monster of it all, that created the Time Mages, is called the End of All Things. He was killed 20 years ago. And we went back in time to help kill him. And the problem was, we had a party member who was involved with killing him the first time round. But when the End of All Things died, it stuck a piece of its soul into her head to sort of like survive. Yeah. So we had her with us, and she had a piece of its soul from after it died in her head. And then we went back to fight it, quote-unquote, again, the first time. The goal being that this time when it dies, it'll try and put that piece of soul into her head again, and the two pieces of soul will annihilate each other, so it'll be dead for real. Didn't quite work. It got into her head, and she died, but then she wound up coming back to life back in the way she got into a time loop.
She's a character that reincarnates when she dies. So the first time she fought it, she died and reincarnated with no memories of her past lives. And so she went back in time. So both her past self and her future self were there fighting at the same time. They both got killed, and they both got an extra, the End of All Things soul. And then when she reincarnated, she ended up with all the souls. So she's trapped in this time loop where every time she goes through the loop, she gets an extra pair of her own soul and that thing's soul, and it just keeps looping and looping. And I can't see what could possibly go wrong with this.
I was going to say, that sounds really bad.
They're like, yeah, End of All Things is contained, no problem.
We figured problem solved.
Yeah, contained until it gets enough soul.
It comes back. They're just trapped in a time loop. There's no escape. So, yeah.
It is true that they are trapped in that time loop, but every time they go through that loop, there's a new pair of souls in their head. But they checked, they met with past Aurora, and there weren't extra souls in her head, which is not what was expected. So
I don't know if I had any expectations, really.
Well, I think Serendipity, she's Shepherd of Souls, was able to determine that for sure the souls all went into Aurora's new body. So you would expect to have 2 Aurora souls in there and 2 End of All Things souls in there, but
so we have 2 Auroras running around simultaneously.
But they don't know what's going on except for just that didn't meet their expectations.
It's for the next adventuring party to deal with.
But the party's now into epic levels, so we really are. Things are coming to a head. They know almost everything that's going on. And it's becoming very party-driven as far as like, okay, we're going to go take out these guys that are screwing with us.
Well, right now we're still being very reactive because these time mages keep nuking our past selves.
Yeah, you're almost out of that though, unless they do it again. But this time they did it to Hank, and the Temple of Freedom guys stopped them.
Yeah,
so.
It's good to have allies. We need to outnumber these guys. The rest of the party doesn't like the idea that the Temple of Freedom has access to time knowledge, because they're the bad guys.
What if your future selves are the ones attacking you? Because you've done something horrible.
We've considered that, but there's really no evidence of that.
Because the Time Mages, when they die, they melt into goo, and they know that they are doppelgangers. So that was like their main thought of those guys would be dead in the future. But unless they all turn into doppelgangers. Unless
But
they
we
were been
can't.
doppelgangers all along.
We can't because we took those potions.
Right.
Yeah.
The past, as part of this, they interacted with the past adventuring party, who the end of all things was the boss of their campaign, and then they had to go back and help them beat it. And they had, because the end of all things was their boss, they dealt with doppelgangers constantly. And so they had invented a potion that you drank that if a doppelganger ever consumes you, you blow up and the doppelganger dies. So you're dead, but the doppelganger's also dead. So then you can, and in this setting, the doppelgangers can't just be anyone, they can only be people who they've consumed. So by taking that potion, you guarantee that no one can ever doppelganger you.
Yeah. So I think that basically covers all of the stuff that happened, that I can remember anyway.
Yeah.
And now next session we just get back into arguing again about what to do with the time mages. And whether to vivisect the vivisect the time.
I didn't know that vivisecting them was on the table.
Tim just jumped straight to that. As soon as it was like, oh, they swallowed the Panadar things, but when you kill them, you can't get anything from their corpses. That means we have to open them up before we kill them.
I have a feeling that might have been Tim rather than Croesus.
I don't know. Anyway, I will conclude the recording.
Okay, so this is a change. Instead of having the Warforged show up and sometimes help us for incomprehensible reasons, now we have evil snake people show up and sometimes help us for incomprehensible reasons. Still not a dream, apparently. Let's kill some abominations. Yep.
So, apparently some time mages killed me, or almost killed me. Apparently. I don't remember this yet. And then apparently some Eve priests rescued me for some reason. I don't know why. They don't even know why. Or maybe they do. I don't know. They didn't seem to. What's going on here? I just want to exist. I want to figure out what the heck is going on with these stupid time mages, and I want to kill them all. And, I mean, that's what they want too. They don't want to exist. But they also don't want me to exist, or you guys, or anything else. And that's dumb. And I don't like that. So, let's fix this. If we can figure out how. And agree on how. That's not going to happen, but we'll do something. And I can work with that, hopefully.
So today we learned that the High Priestess is part of a secret cult. I am so shocked. Just knock me over with a feather. Wonder how Cricket's gonna deal with this now. Oh, and she's immortal. Great.
I'm connecting some dots here, and I'm not entirely sure if they're real dots or not. So those amulets that the serpent priestesses and priests have, Serendipity, Van Gogh's Strider Malor, Tower of Towers, Shepherd of Souls, Striders of Time, Doom Delayer, Salvation of Children. She says that they are in some way connected to something called the Triforce. And I've been dredging my memory. Apparently these things are granting the High Priestess immortality, but I'm dredging my memory and I seem to recall some sort of obscure legend that something called the Triforce was the source of the Serpent Queen's immortality. So perhaps after she died, the High Priestess found it? That could possibly be the case. It's worth thinking about. But we have other important things first. We may finally be able to figure out what is up with these time mages and put a stop to it. And we finally have allies in the fight. Oh, yes, that's quite a relief. Hopefully we'll figure out some information here that will be useful.
Well, that's really strange. They're amulets. They're related to the Triforce of legend. But that doesn't exist. It's legendary. Well, so time travel doesn't exist. Why do we keep coming across things that shouldn't exist?